Do you remember when decision making became an important issue in your life? I actually remember the day that I said to myself, you know, Bill, you got to figure this out. I was a young man. I was getting ready to go away to college, and I was asking that question that young man asked, like, what am I supposed to do with my life? Well, what kind of a career should I pursue? What kind of a degree should I pursue? And so I got to thinking, okay, if I want to know this, who should I ask? And I figured I need to talk to my dad, because my dad had a career he absolutely loved. He used to come home on a regular basis and say, I can't believe they pay me to do this. So I figured, boy, if I want to figure out that kind of a career, I need to go talk to Dad. So I made an appointment with him and I said, Dad, how do you figure out what kind of a degree you should pursue and what you should do for a career? And he said to me, well, Bill, I'm not very good at talking about things like this, but whatever you decide, I'll support. And you know, I knew my dad didn't really mean it, because there were a lot of things I could think of doing that I knew my dad would not support. Like if I went to him and said, well, Dad, you know, there's a lot of money in dealing drugs. I knew my dad would not support that. And so I figured out my dad could not put into words what he had actually done in his life. And it created a hunger inside of me. And I set out that day to figure out, how does this decision-making thing work? And how can I get to a place in my life where I'm confident about the decisions that I need to make? And what I've learned along that journey, we're going to be studying in the next few weeks together. And before we get started, I'd like you to just take a few minutes and work through the question, when did decision making become an important issue in your life? The reason why it's so important that we get good at making decisions is that our emotions follow our decisions. And I know we're told as guys we don't get all that emotional. The issue is we just get emotional about different things. For instance, when my youngest son was playing in a college football game and he intercepted a pass, ran 96 yards for a touchdown, on the video you can hear me screaming like a little girl because I was so excited for what he was doing. And so when you learn to make good decisions, it harnesses all that emotional energy. And there's a lot of benefits that come to your life when you do that. The first thing, like I said, it gives you more energy, because the goal in life is to take what we know to be true, decide to do it, and when you do that, it pulls your emotions in line behind it. And when you get your mind, will, and emotions all focused on what God wants you to do in your life, boy, that gets to be pretty exciting to watch that in action. And as a result, it makes our lives more efficient, because you spend less time and less energy figuring out what you need to do, and it gives you that energy to pursue the actual goal. And then good decision making simplifies our lives and raises our confidence level, because when you know you're doing what you ought to be doing, it's easy to be confident. And unfortunately, we hit obstacles. There are some things that hinder us from making really good decisions. For instance, sometimes we just let others make decisions for us that we really ought to be making ourselves. Sometimes we blame poor decisions on others rather than just take responsibility for them. Sometimes we refuse to set priorities that would guide our decisions, and so we get involved in trivial things rather than get the important things done. Sometimes we are just too lazy to put in the effort that it takes to make our decisions. And sometimes, guys, we give in to peer pressure and do what others expect of us rather than doing what we know is best. At other times, we just make excuses for poor decisions. Rather than correcting the decision, we just come up with excuses. And finally, sometimes we're just not honest about the changes that need to be made in our life that require us to make new decisions. So as we prepare to talk about how to make great decisions, take a couple minutes right now and ask yourself, which of these obstacles are you most susceptible to? You know, we all need to make decisions in our life. And it has occurred to me that the way most people make decisions is they do it by instinct. That a circumstance presents itself to you, you have to make some kind of a decision, and an answer occurs to you based on your instincts, and you just run with it. Now, you might accidentally make a great decision that way, but you might just as easily accidentally make a poor decision that complicates your life, simply by following instincts. But fortunately, there's a better way. We are told in the Bible that we have the mind of Christ. So we can actually use God's thoughts and wisdom to pursue decisions in our life. And it's especially important for us as men because God made us aggressive and powerful. That because of testosterone that's in our body, boy, we can get passionate about the things that we care about in life. For instance, I had an opportunity to drive a Porsche 911. A friend of mine had bought one, and he called me up and said, "Hey, Bill, you want to go for a ride?" I'm like, "Yeah." So he showed up, and we started on the drive. And it wasn't too long before he pulled over to the side of the road, and he looked at me, and he said, "Bill, you want to drive?" I'm like, "Well, yeah." So I got in the driver's seat, started up that engine, and that big engine just rumbled behind me. And I thought, "Ooh, this is going to be good." And so I started driving, and I went into a turn that was marked 25 miles an hour. I went into it going 40. I came out of it going 65. And I could have gone faster. And when I realized the potential of this vehicle, I realized two things. One, this needs to be enjoyed, and this needs to be respected. And that's the way decision making is in our life. We need to enjoy the process, and we need to respect the power behind it.
I'll tell you one of the things. I'll ask you guys. I mentioned my older son just got married. What the challenge has been over the last year and a half, as he's graduated from college and looking for work in this wonderful economy we find ourselves in, he comes to me as dad and wants answers. What do I do? Who do I talk to? How do I find a good job? What should my career be? I've found, it's very, as a father, you sit there and you want to have all the answers. And I've tried, and unfortunately, whether it's due to the answers or the economy itself, has created some real tough times. Felt very uncomfortable. It's like I didn't have the answers. I couldn't help him. And he struggled. And you could see this light just kind of flicker in him as to the drive.
Wow.
I don't know whether any of you guys experienced that or something like it and how you work through it.
Nothing maybe exactly like that, but I think as fathers, we do want to have the answers, but more so than not, I think we need to have honesty and transparency with our kids.
Yeah, fair enough.
And if we don't have the answers, we don't have the answers. I mean, we're not God. We're not perfect. And I think for me, in the experiences I've had in that area, is my kids have actually accepted the fact that dad was honest, transparent, and didn't have exactly what I was looking for, but I gave him what I had.
Yeah, it kind of goes into the workplace, any kind of relationship too. It's like, as one of your workers or one of your employees comes to you and you don't have an answer for them, and you can't just BS the guy. You can only do that for so long. It's not going to work. Same with your family. You put up a front all the time. To your kids, you're not going to be real after a while, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And then if you can admit that you're wrong and you messed up.
My oldest son went through a thing like that too, and he was trying to decide what he wanted to do in life, and he had things that he really enjoyed in life. And I remember it was really an issue of, am I going to be worried about financial, or am I going to be worried about pursuing something that will make me happy? Something I really enjoy. And the best advice I gave him, and he's followed it as much as he could, and that's been 20 years ago, is pursue your dream. Don't ever give up on your dream. If you have a dream of something you really love and you really want to achieve, pursue it. You may have to do other things to get to there. You may have to take, whatever it is to get by. But never give up on your dream, because once you give up on that dream, it's gone. So don't give up on it. You keep fighting to get that dream no matter what the circumstances are. And he has.
I've discovered there are 4 tests that we can apply to any decision that's before us that will give us the confidence that we're doing what God wants us to do. And the first test is what I call the obvious test. Now, the obvious test, it really is just one question. It is the question, is this decision so obvious that I'm wasting time thinking about it? See, there are some things in our lives, guys, we just need to do. Like if I were to ask you, should you brush your teeth every day? The answer is obvious. Just get with it. So sometimes things are obvious because they're the best practices in life. Other times they're obvious because God has already spoken. For instance, one of the clearest examples I know is Joshua 24:15. Many of you have quoted this verse. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Now the context of this verse is very fascinating. The nation of Israel has already won the big battles. Joshua has led them across the Jordan River. They defeated Jericho. They went on, defeated Ai. All the big battles have been won, and Joshua now calls the nation together. And he says to the men of the nation, man, it's time now for you to go settle your land. And so we read these words. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your forefathers served beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. See, what he said to them is, as you go out and settle your land and build your businesses and build your homes, there is a vital decision you need to make. You either need to decide to serve the living God who created everything and has been leading us in victory, or you can worship idols. Now, guys, intellectually, this is a simple decision. If I were to ask you, what is smarter, to worship the living God or worship this table right here, what would you say? I mean, of course, you would say it makes more sense to worship the living God. But this is all an idol is, an inanimate object that we have assigned attributes to. So intellectually, this thing is really simple. But Joshua knew their decision would make all the difference. So he looked them in the eyes and he said, guys, you need to choose. It's obvious, but you need to make the decision so that, again, your emotions and your will get behind what you know to be true. So before we move to test number 2, take a couple minutes and think about this question right here. What are some of the obvious decisions that we should all make quickly without giving them much thought?